As a young boy, old folks thought I was cool. I did good in school, so mama let me bend the rules. I grew up with an attitude to do just what I choose. Still at that magnitude, that's just how I do.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode two of Shooting the Shit with myself, Pat Harding, and we have Bradley Smith on the boards. Wanted to let you guys know I didn't do a good job actually introducing the show on the first episode, but for us, it's just about our sports stories, anything that's hot during the week, and whatever other shit that we come up with, to be honest. So, Pat, how you doing? How you doing during our nice pandemic?
You know, I'm feeling real great. I'm ready to serve the chickens to these babies. Let everybody know how we feeling about life during the pandemic, sports during the pandemic, giving the people what they want.
Very nice, very nice. All right, so we're going to start on The Last Dance. And to be honest, I just want to wrap it up to do due diligence. I've heard enough about MJ. I am personally all MJ'd out. But I do want to add this last thing. That 98 finals, that last 45 seconds where he had the free throws, then the jumper, then the steal, then the jumper to seal everything. I think that's the best 45-second resume in human history. Like, I don't think Martin Luther King had a better 45 seconds than that. Like, you can't really beat that sequence. And then Bob Costas had the call, and like everything was absolutely perfect. And I mean, that deserves a myth if nothing else. But how do you feel about that, man? I've never seen anyone end their career like that in my entire life, and we probably never will.
So similar to how you feel, I'm all MJ'd out. I've actually been MJ'd out since like 2010, but that's a different conversation. Yeah, I'm pressing myself to hate and find something that is relatively similar to that particular sequence of events. Can't find one. I got to give the man his respect, give his credit. He did fuck it up because he came back and did the Wizards thing, but that's really the only. If he would have left on that, it's just like if Jay-Z would have left with the Black Album. Maybe, who knows what it would have been like after. Jordan didn't have a 4.44 after his Black Album. No, he had the 98, the 45 seconds in 98. Then he came back with the Wizards and he had Kwame Brown. I similar to you, man. Just as a sports fan, you don't have a 45 seconds like that to walk off. I'm partial to Kobe's final game. That's not really, it's not even close because it's a regular season game, but just the way everything went down. That 45 seconds was magical. Props to MJ.
Yeah, all right, cool. So enough about MJ. Well, I really wanted to focus on a couple of characters who weren't really featured as much as they should have been, in my opinion, and they are Dennis Rodman and Steve Kerr. And I'll start with Dennis Rodman. He had such a wild career, or really a life, like starting with growing up in South Dallas. He was short. He was down on his luck. He ended up going to some random school in Oklahoma, having a growth spurt, and he got to the league just off sheer effort. He turned into a savant with the Pistons, but he was innocent. Then he got to the Bulls, and he turned into this. Like the hair and the
worm.
piercings. Yeah, the worm. Yeah, like I just think that whole journey was fascinating, and they did a whole 30 for 30 on it. But I wish that he got more of his due because he filled in the void that Horace Grant left, and he was really one of the major keys to the run. And of course, he didn't get the credit that he was due. What impression do you have on Dennis Rodman, especially during that 3-year run, man?
I love Dennis just for the pure entertainment value that he brought to that Bulls team. The legend says Jordan was all business, immense trash talker, hard on his teammates. But you've never heard Dennis Rodman ever say anything negative about Jordan. And I think it's because of that personality. Dennis stood on his own. Dennis didn't need to rely on Jordan hyping him up or making him great. Dennis was going to be Dennis. I find myself trying to find equivalents to Dennis Rodman in today's game. And as much credit as we like to give Jordan for those Bulls, let's stop and give Phil Jackson an immense amount of credit. How
Oh,
many other teams would allow Dennis Rodman to be Dennis Rodman? How many other coaches, front offices, GMs would allow Dennis Rodman to be Dennis Rodman? I think that's really the beauty of Phil Jackson. And really for me, that's where my mind went when I was watching the parts of Dennis. Like Jordan went to go pull Dennis out of a hotel in Vegas and they get back to practice and Phil thinks he's going to serve the team a lesson, but lo and behold, Dennis is ready. Dennis has
yeah,
cocaine in
go
his
stay
system,
ready.
whatever else is in his system. He's running laps around guys. There's just some guys that are built like that. And Phil, to his credit, allowed Dennis to be Dennis. He got the most out of Dennis that I don't think anyone else could have got that out of Dennis aside from Phil Jackson with whatever spurring Michael Jordan did as well. So
Let's take a pause on that for a second. Now, the Jordan hotel myth. The person who did the doc actually said Dennis was back in town in Chicago, across the street from the arena. That's where Jordan pulled him from. He didn't go
oh
to
word.
Vegas to get him.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Well, that
Yeah,
goes
the
back to what
hotel.
we said last. This myth of what Jordan had to do to win the championships, and
Oh,
he had
here
to
we
drag
go.
men through
We're
snow, up
back.
a hill, torrential rains downpouring. But if anyone could do it, Jordan could. So Dennis was in Chicago, but they said he was. Then the documentary purported that he was in Vegas. They had to go to Vegas to get him. Am I correct or incorrect?
The
I
way they
think that's
phrased
good.
it, they make it seem like Jordan went to Vegas, but he actually went across the street.
Oh.
Well, then
Yeah,
that
of
makes it
course.
less mythical.
Shocking, I know. But again, enough about MJ. Like we can't. Oh my goodness! But yes, the wedding dress man. Like during the 30 for 30, they were talking about how Jordan was on the team, but most of mainstream America, Rodman was the most popular guy because he was out there just doing whatever. He had Carmen Electra. He attracted a whole demographic of people who wouldn't be watching the NBA or care about it otherwise. And he really doesn't get enough credit for that and with everything else he had to deal with. And I feel like that was obviously the highlight of his life at that point. And I was wondering if he knew that it was going to end like that, and he had a really rough couple of decades after that, and just went to be straight out crazy. Do you think he would have tried to end it all, just like try to end it on top and try to kind of fade into obscurity if he knew what he knows now?
Absolutely not. I think that you would have gotten Dennis wherever Dennis was at. Um, I think that's what makes it so great because I call me crazy, but I think we got a tame version of Dennis Rodman because of Phil Jackson. Phil let him push the limits within the confines of what that Bulls organization was. I think if Dennis was playing for, let's say, who's another obscure coach that would, let's say Dennis was playing for Mike Brown.
Oh,
What
we
would,
will be running circles around Mike Brown, man.
if
Smoking
Dennis was
cigs on
playing
the
for
bench,
Mike
all that.
Brown, who knows? Dennis Rodman might not have shown up for 30 games.
Yeah, you're right, man. Like Phil deserves a lot of credit. I always talk about how I feel like Pop is the greatest coach of all time, but it doesn't mean that Phil Jackson is a slouch, and he was so great with personalities and managing egos, especially when everything was good. If you have talent, you want Phil to coach him because he's going to study personalities. He's going to be laid back. He always knows what buttons to push, who to fall back on, and it normally creates a recipe for a championship team. So you got to give him great credit for that. So now we move, and of course, this story is going to revolve around how Jordan snubbed Kerr in practice. But I don't think that it went into how fascinating Kerr's journey has been through the NBA. Like, you got to think about it. Like, he was an All-American in '88, like, went to Arizona State. Then he got to the Bulls, won 3 titles. He won what the '97 finals on the jumper, and from there became a GM, then an analyst, then a coach of another dynasty himself. And how many people do you know has a track record like that? He's one of the few people who you can truly say has really done it all. And I think
Absolutely.
his journey is so fascinating, and it just does not get touched on in the doc at all, which is pretty disappointing to me.
Yeah, I think that was a large criticism is that, obviously it got called the MJ documentary, but it was The Last Dance, which was the last final season of Phil's career with the Bulls, Jordan's career. Of course, at the end, they gave you all the stats that said they dismantled the team and went to the rebuild. So it really was a Bulls documentary, but obviously Jordan and the Bulls are synonymous. So it turned out to be a Jordan documentary. But I would say outside of Jordan's entire career, we're talking commerce with the shoes, the branding, what Jordan is today. Steve Kerr might have the most successful basketball career, total basketball career. I mean, you might throw Bill Russell in there. Um, I've struggled to compare the Bill Russell. I try to not let people who played mailmen predate my opinion, but Bill Russell's in there, player coach. I don't think Bill Russell was a GM. I'm not that deep into the annals of basketball history. But Jerry West, those two, Steve Kerr and Jerry West, might be some of the most successful career basketball individuals in the history of the sport. With what Jerry did with his titles, even though he had a losing record, what he did with
His title.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he had multiple title losses, but the one title he got, becoming the logo, yeah, becoming the logo, stops at L.A., then Golden State. What he's done with his career is phenomenal. And then Steve Kerr. I mean, he did what he did with the Bulls, then went to the Spurs, grabbed him a quick one, got out the game, did his thing in Phoenix. Yeah, I love everything Kerr did. I'm a huge Steve Kerr, the after basketball fan, because I'm not really a huge Bulls fan. But Steve Kerr, from analyzing the game to coming back in, and I think a lot of people try and take Kerr's credit because of the whole Mark Jackson handoff from Mark Jackson building what the current Golden State Warriors are now to Steve Kerr essentially walking into a hand.
He got gifted a dynasty, and you know
Right.
what? I don't agree. Mark Jackson, I feel like he's a great leader of men. I feel like he's a great motivator. I feel like he didn't do anything to not deserve another coaching job. With that said, he had Klay Thompson posting up in 2013, and I mean 15 feet, like it. And what Kerr did was unlock those two, because he kept the defense intact, because that was something that Mark Jackson did a really great job of, and Mark Jackson knew how great Steph and Klay were shooting wise. He said so himself, like back when people were calling him crazy for calling them the best shooting backcourt in history, which is now pretty self-evident. And he'll still have his Steph shoot with floaters. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And just that alone, like the moment, I think it was game one with Kerr, like running everything, I was like, oh, this makes sense. What they have Steph a lot more off ball now. That makes sense. Like, leverage is shooting. Oh, they have Klay actually shooting a lot of threes. Wow, what do you know? That makes a ton of sense. And he built a dynasty. And like coach, all the difference with that type of stuff. Like once you have the talent, you have to have a coach that doesn't let his ego get in the way, like that lets people do what they do well and then combine it to form a championship team. And I feel like Kerr did a great job of that, so he deserves the credit. Like he wasn't a GM. Like yeah, he got lucky, but who wouldn't walk into that situation? Like Phil Jackson did it. So like
Absolutely.
why do we give Steve Kerr help with doing that?
Right. And I agree with you 100%. You think that or you stated that you think him having Clay post up was the big knock on Mark Jackson's coaching philosophy. I also look at a move that Kerr did when he got theirs. He moved Draymond into the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Draymond was coming off the bench, and now we look at Draymond as this utility player. I think Golden State really embraced that positionless basketball. Draymond had the tenacity. Kerr saw it. He took advantage of it, and I think many people to this day believe that while Steph and Clay are the engine that run that team, Draymond is the heart and the soul of the team, the glue guy, to say that really was the fabric of the championship run that they were on, or some people believe they may currently still be in it. But yeah, no, Kerr gets a lot of credit from me, and I think that arguably he could be one of the greatest basketball, one of the greatest careers in basketball outside of whatever brand Jordan's created with the economics and the shoe. We're talking strictly basketball career. Steve Kerr's probably had the best career of any player to grace the NBA court.
Yeah, man, and like people don't talk about it. I feel like they should talk about it more. I was actually thinking about this hypothetical question that if we asked Steve Kerr, there's no way he'd answer it honestly. He would probably give some type of, oh, they're all cool. But I would like to know who he thinks was the best leader between Jordan, Duncan, Curry, and Nash. I want to hear the truth serum on his answer to that. And I want to hear what he values in leadership and how he pushes buttons and how those star players that he either played with or coached or GM'd over utilize that to their advantage.
That's a really deep question. I'll never say Jordan, but obviously
he might. Who knows? He talked about how like the team was laid back outside Jordan and they needed Jordan to really push because after Title 1, after Title 2, you get tired. You want to take weeks off because the regular season doesn't matter like that. So he might say Mike for what they need. Who knows? But I would like to hear that. So enough about the last dance. Yeah, enough about the last dance. A very well produced piece of Jordan propaganda. I'm very happy it's over because you might have the real thing coming back. The NBA plan to come back. I want to say July 1st, they want people to go in Disneyland, and it's going to be pretty wild. They want training camp to start June 1st. How you feel about it, man? I have my thoughts. I'll let you go, but I have my thoughts, and I'm not sure it's what people want to hear, so go ahead.
Obviously, we're all starved for basketball. I don't want them to rush into anything, but I do want them to start looking for solutions. And this is a solution that's been presented. I looked into some of the details, and it's an idea that's floated around that they'll have this ESPN Wild World campus available for them to use, and I think that's great. I think the idea is that they want to have every team show up, but then you're looking at, okay, once we get all 30 teams here, who's in the playoff hunt? Because obviously that's the most important thing at this point. We still have some teams fighting for playoff seeding. You had, I think, the 8 seed in Memphis out west, and then the 9 seed was New Orleans, and that's still New Orleans still feels like they can secure a playoff spot. So
it's a possible thing, yes.
So you don't just want to say, okay, we're only taking the top 16 teams now, because you have a real fight for those final playoff spots. I mean, the East is pretty much what the East is at this point. I don't think there's too much movement there, but it's really interesting. The 8, 9, and 10 spots in the West are wide open. I would hate to have them say, okay, we're only bringing the top 16 teams in because now New Orleans is shorted, and you don't get to see how that plays out. I'll tell you, my number one concern is if it does get going, Obviously, it's a Disney, it's ESPN. I love Doris Burke, but you got to figure out a way to get the TNT guys in on the broadcast. Um, I
Oh, they'll
love
sequester something in Atlanta. They'll be all right.
absolutely, absolutely. You think about when the ESPN had the NFL draft and they did the co collaboration with NFL Network. You got to think that they'd bring the TNT guys in, Shaq, Kenny, uh, Barkley, Ernie. Those guys are NBA, so you'd want to include them. That's really just my biggest concern. I think they'll figure out the games, and I think there'll be a way for all 30 teams to come. Of course, they'll have testing to make sure that that site doesn't become compromised with the coronavirus. But I think once they figure that out, I would hate to see them just say we're taking the top 16 teams and doing the playoffs from here. I'd want to see them finish the season out. Obviously, those are conversations that we're not a part of, so we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, so my concern is whether they're rushing back. And my main question is this. If all the players and the coaches and the GMs and owners, if everyone got their money, if they canceled the season, would they still play? If the answer to that is yes, then please go forth, do your thing, do what you gotta do, get your asterisk title on. I don't think that's the case. There's no way I feel like that's the case, and that's my biggest concern about Mile, that money is pushing this whole thing, and they're doing it at the expense of people with families and friends and parents and all that, and especially if they're not sealing off Disney World, they're still letting teams go out and about in a state that is getting hit really hard by the virus, no matter what their goofy governor says.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a huge concern. We already had Joe Ingles talk about how he will go to Australia and never play again if that's the case. And I can't blame him. They all have family to look over. And I feel like people see these NBA players as entertainers, dance for me, dump for me, jump for me, but they're humans, bro. Like, they have people to worry about. They have their own health to worry about, and they only have a limited amount of time to get this money. So that money is, that's a really hard decision for them to make, and I would really prefer if they weren't getting rushed back for the sake of the money, because they don't really care about the fans, because there won't be any fans at the game. This is all fulfilling their TV obligations. So I have my concerns, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes, man.
Yeah, as far as health goes, there's mixed reporting out there, and we can point fingers at why that is or how that's become our current environment for news.
I'm very on the point.
But as far as leaving, I do think that's a huge area that they need to figure out. Are we going to allow the players to go back and forth? I've heard players say that they would love to play, but they don't want to be at a remote site. They'd want to be able to go back and forth to their family, which is understandable. But as you well know, Sean, and as I know, and as Brad knows, our producer, we have people in the military who do just exactly that. They leave their families for extended amount of time to go complete the larger mission. And while they are more than basketball players, I feel that if there's a way that it can be proven that this environment is safe, if testing is rampant, if they're able to contain the players, I agree with you. I don't think that letting them move back and forth is the best idea. But if they can show that they can contain this, I say why not? The NFL, left to their own devices, is probably having private workouts right now. Their owners are all about the money. They don't care. The NFL will launch this thing into a sea of coronavirus if you let them. So I feel like the NBA doesn't want to push the season. They still want the season. They don't want to push it too far, because once the NFL starts up, they know America is going to shift towards watching the NFL as opposed to sitting down and watching, basketball play out, depending on where they're at in the playoffs at that point, because you got to think August, September would be playoff time. I think if you can give the players a little bit of certainty about how this entire Disney World environment is going to be handled, and if they can put aside, going back and forth with the families and having to be around their loved ones like our military members have to do for 3, 6, 9, 12 months, I think we can get a pretty great product at the ESPNY World of Sports.
Now, I did read an
All right.
article
Well,
earlier today. Hold on, just sticking with it real quick. From SI.com, Rohan, and I don't want to butcher his last name, but he essentially goes on, is Florida the best place to do this? And he's even responsible to do this just because of how Trump's response has been to the whole pandemic. And then he said the Tampa Bay Times reported that the Florida Health Department suppressed the real number of coronavirus deaths. So it's like, is this the best place to go? And is this even the best optics to do it?
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think anyone gives a shit about the optics. Like, otherwise, we would have just canceled the season and moved on. It's all money. It's all money and given the perception of safety, which I obviously don't agree with because I tend to see everyone that's humans as opposed to like how much they can entertain me. So, like, I feel like it's wildly irresponsible, but they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And if we're being real, if they're playing, I'm watching. So it just kind of is what it
That's
is.
a
Like
fact.
I just, yeah, I'm
Also,
gonna have my stomach clenched, but like I'm a watch. Sorry.
you also
Well, I'm
got to
not
look
sorry.
at the alternative to Florida. Like, is Florida the best place? Maybe, maybe not. But look at all the states that are opened up. It's all based on political lines and political parties. If you're not going to Florida, then you're probably looking at Arizona. They're not going to do it in California. They're not going to do it in New York. They're not going to do it in any places in the Northeast that have, let's just say, blue representation. So, I mean, you're going to go to a state that's opened up. If you look across the landscape, most of the states that are opened up they share a common thread of their political affiliation. So, if you want to make that claim for what they're doing in Florida, then you have to look at what they've done in Georgia. You have to look at what they're doing in Arizona, because those places are open and they're saying, hey, we're ready for business. We want you to bring the business here. And that's what this is all about, is money. So I think Florida has the facilities that make sense. And I think that's why they're being talked about at Disney World. Other than that, if you say, oh, Florida's not the place to do it, they're just going to go to another red state and figure out a way to do it. So.
Yeah, but I wish the rest state would be Montana or something. There ain't nobody over there. That would be the best. That would be the best state. There's no like within 6 miles of anything, and just make an arena. Everyone be safe. But no, it has to be a place where they're going to have a new New York as far as viruses. So whatever. Like we'll see how it goes. So the Rooney Rule. We're going to switch gears over to the NFL. And the Rooney Rule. And I want to preface this and every other NFL-related thing with, I don't really give a fuck about the NFL like that. Like, this is going to be past domain. If need be, we're going to, we'll have guests on here. But every time we go into actual games or gambling or fantasy football, I'm going to be like, hey, so is Cat playing? And if the answer is no, then I'm just going to shut the fuck up. So with that being said, how do you feel about the Rooney Rule? I heard that they did something even more insulting than normal with the Rooney Rule. So you can go ahead and go into it.
Well, I'll jump into it, and hopefully the insulting part that you're referring to is the draft pick compensation that they stated that if you interview or hire a minority, you get draft pick compensation. The good news is that they got that insulting recommendation out of there. They tabled it. So they tabled it, meaning that they're not going to vote on it right now. There's still some more room. Maybe it can come back. Maybe it doesn't come back. But they did not vote on that particular part. So that's great, because I don't think any black person or any minority for that matter would want to be the first person to say, hey, I got hired because they're going to increase my team's draft pick by 10 spots. I don't think any minority wants that. We all want to be hired on, our merits. And when I say we, I'm speaking of coaches in the NFL. I am not a coach in the NFL, but I'm just speaking as a minority. I'm glad that they tabled that. The idea was that they tabled it because they thought that it could be manipulated in that way, where some of these hires would really just be Trojan horses for chess moves that teams are making. So I'm glad they tabled it. I really like a lot of the proposals that they suggested in the new Rooney Rule, which they voted into effect. It's effective now. You have to interview two minority candidates now. In the past, it used to be one. You have to interview two. The big change for me is that they've also established a a committee of sorts, a fellowship, a mentorship program. All 32 teams have a mentorship program now where potential candidates come and they're mentored. They're full-time positions. They come in and they're mentored by NFL board or whatever the team decides to put together to groom them to go into the pipeline, because that's really what the problem is that minority candidates aren't being interviewed to fill the pipeline. They're not being put in a position to be seen by coaches. A lot of business is buddy, who you know, not what you know. So what this mentorship fellowship program does is it gives them the tools, but it also puts them in the room as they're being groomed. So now they're in position to be seen. They're in position to be recognized. So you don't have to be the next Mike Tomlin. You can be the next whatever offensive coordinator position guy there is that comes up. It was ridiculous how many offensive guys. I think the Giants hired, or the Giants offensive coordinator, coach, whatever, got a job, and he's never been in any type of role, head coach, the quarterback's coach. Yeah. It was kind of ridiculous the way it's happening. But that fellowship program, that mentorship program will allow our candidates, our minority candidates, to be in the room so that they're seen, so they can start networking and filling those pipelines. And that's the utopian hope, is that by having that program there, they fill those pipelines. There's a couple other good changes that they made in regards to allowing offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special team coordinator coaches to be interviewed during the season. Teams can't block coaches from being interviewed. They've relaxed the rules on that. So in the case of Eric Bieniemy, who is going on a Super Bowl run with the Kansas City Chiefs, he couldn't interview during the season because he was still in it and he was blocked from interviewing. And as soon as the season was over, he had to rush an interview. But all the while, teams that were out of contention and weren't in the playoffs are already interviewing guys and filling those roles. So they've relaxed those rules. There's a lot of strong black voices in the NFL that are trying to fix it. Is it perfect? No. Is anything ever going to be perfect? No. But I feel personally we're moving in the right direction. As long as they don't bring that draft compensation BS back in, I think this is a great step in the right direction.
Nice. Okay. I'm glad you feel that way. And I did want to mention one thing about what I heard about the Rooney Rule. And I heard Bomani Jones mention this earlier this week. People are saying that it makes the black coaches look goofy, that they have to go through all this just to get hired. And that's not the case. It makes the owners look goofy because they can't get out their way so much, so bad that they're gonna hurt their own teams, their own asset. It's like taking the sledgehammer to your own house, just so you hire, like, you don't hire a black guy. So it says a lot more about them than it does the coaches who are getting passed over, who dedicated their lives to this and keep getting blackballed or shitted on in whatever different ways that they do in the NFL. And I think it's important to remember that, and we can't really shift the blame from the owners. They're the ones who make the final call and know these decisions. And being honest, if someone really wanted NBN that bad, they would have made calls and they would be like, hey, we're keeping this over for you. We're going to do our due diligence with interviewing other people because you have to, but this job is yours. And just the antiquated rule that they let go of is kind of a cover to me for the fact that, like, these old owners would rather hurt their teams than having a qualified black guy lead their teams. And I actually want to get into a story about why I kind of fell out of love with the NFL, and they have to do with Cam Newton, believe it or not. So Cam had that magical MVP season. Like he's dabbing, he's doing the Superman and all that good stuff. So I was stationed in Honduras at the time. I'm a military guy, and during the Super Bowl, it was like the '50s all over again with the segregation. Like all the black people were rooting for Carolina, all the white people were rooting for Denver, and Carolina got smacked. They got beat over the field. Cam was awful, and all the Panthers were awful, and they're represented by Cam, and it was so bad. I just had like this awful feeling in my stomach just watching all the Broncos fans just celebrating a little too hard. I'm like, yo, like y'all not even Broncos fans like that. Why are y'all so happy? And then outside, like, after we left the bar, I hear that arrogant nigger got what he deserved, and we swung on dude. So and after that, I kind of fell out of love with it. And then Cap had another. I was like, well, okay, well, no, fuck it. Like, this probably ain't for me, but I can't really knock anyone else for watching it. Like I can't make that a prerequisite for making friends. Oh, you watch the league. Oh, you're such a bad person. Nah, man. Like it is what it is. But that's just my personal reason for not really working with it like that.
Let's just understand as well what the NFL represents. NFL is America's new sport, right? It used to be baseball. And let's talk about what baseball represents. Who watches baseball?
Oh, you know what
right?
time it is.
Okay, so the NFL is America's sport. Let's talk about America's team. The Cowboys. What does Texas represent? Who does Dallas represent? And some people are even saying that Dallas is no longer America's team. It's the Patriots, which is even
worse. Yeah.
So it's already inherent. It's kind of like Cam Newton is the equivalent to the NFL of what Floyd Mayweather was to boxing. You know, many black people love Floyd Mayweather because white people hated him, right? And white people watch Floyd Mayweather fights because they wanted to see if Mayweather was going to lose. That was the situation with Cam. That's the situation with Cap. It's embedded in America. So that comes along with having, a sport represent the country that's still divided along racial lines. Even if you don't feel like you're racist, there's many good people out there that aren't racist, but the truth be told, everything has racial undertones in it. The fact that Cam doesn't have a job right now, you can point to that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Clearly, the fact that Cap doesn't have a job right now has racial undertones to it. We just call it what it is. I love the NFL. I don't claim that it's perfect or it's exactly what represents me, but as far as competitive sports in any given Sunday, and the NFL, it's almost bulletproof. I mean, you had the whole Cap situation happen, and the NFL still rolls along. No matter how much people decided to tune out or hate watch it, they are going to be the NFL. But the steps that they took with the Rooney Rule, I think they're doing their best to try and make amends for some of the missteps they've had. But until there's more black people, more Hispanic people, more minorities in general in decision-making positions within the NFL, they're always going to struggle with it. So the Rooney Rule is making a step towards that. We can't claim it's perfect, but it is a step. And everyone knows that famous colloquialism that's on everyone's wall. Every journey begins with one step. So we'll see where this journey goes.
Yeah, hopefully they don't walk backwards or, side to side like they've been doing for God knows how long. So this doesn't have anything to do with sports, but I love sneakers. I love collecting them. I love doing my thing with them. And I wanted to talk about this particular pair that I know I'm not going to fucking get because everything's getting raffled off. And it's fine. I've made my peace with it. On StockX, it's like $1,700 at this point. Like, it's asking these Ben & Jerry dunks, which
they just came out today.
Yeah. you're not going to get them unless you know somebody. And it's fine. It is what it is. I've made my peace. I've cried. I've cried over it. Like, I've done all my mourning over not being able to get them unless I pay $2,000, which I'm not going to do. But gosh, they're so tough. I love them so much. I feel like they're the shoe of the year. They're the shoe of the year. I can't imagine them coming out with a better shoe. And they had the packaging in the little ice cream carton with the cherry on top. And I just, oh my goodness gracious, man. They're going to be, oh my God.
I've saved many thousands of dollars by getting out the sneaker game. Back in my youth, before children, Pat was a sneakerhead. But you got to look at how the entire industry has changed. Back in 2004, 2005, when I was in high school and I just had my little job and was collecting a little money and had money to spend on sneakers, you could go get What the Dunks. You could go get Dunkles for $70 to $90. You just had to know where to find them. You go try and find those Dunkles now, you're at $3,400. Pat's not playing with the sneaker game.
Like, you could get them. That's
Pat's right here.
Oh my God.
Pat's right here. You got the Gap. You got the Old Navy special. I think I bought these in Miami. We were on vacation, and I just stopped at the store, bought these. No. I'm in Arizona, baby. It's sunny all day. I don't need my feet in sneakers sweating it up. Much props to all you sneakerheads. You, Sean, I hope you get what you're looking for. Some people get lucky. It's literally hitting the lotto. I think you got to put in a bid for them, and I don't like to gamble. I don't like to bid on stuff, and I don't even like to try and reserve something that I know I can't possibly get. So, Pat's been out the shoe game for a while. I might get some black Air Force One mids just so I can intimidate people in the summer.
Oh, yeah. Who are you going to intimidate with black Air Force One mids in Arizona? They don't even know what that means.
Listen, when they see them black Uptowns, them black Air Force One mids with the strap that's unstrapped and it might be dead on the side, they going to know what time it is.
Black man in Arizona.
They going to know what time it is.
Oh man! So yeah, like I've said my prayers on the chunky dunks. They didn't work. I might cop me a fake pair to wear it. So like,
who's gonna check you? Who's gonna check you?
Yeah, who's gonna check me? Yeah, I'm big. Like I can push people. I could use my deep voice. Like, what you mean they fake? But yeah, man, like it's fantastic. And yeah, we're gonna talk about shoes more. Like even stuff that's coming out. Especially stuff that I know I'm not going to get. Those are the fun ones because I can dream. Once I actually put them on and wear them a couple places, they get dirty. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? But yeah, we're going to talk about sneakers, and that's part of the shit. Like we're going to talk about music as it comes up. We're going to do all that good stuff. So, and before we go, this nice little hoodie I'm wearing, Every Day You Evolve, it's from my guy Looks. You can go on Instagram, check him out. It's Every Day You Evolve, just straight like it's one word. Great hoodie, great material, and even better person. One of my best friends, really solid dude, really easy to support. So you should go and support him, man. So is that it? Is that what we got today?
I guess I'm gonna do my best Steven Jackson impersonation and do my begging segment. Tell you, man, I need a hookup. I need a hoodie. I will support the movement. Just if he needs my address, I got my size. It's adult large. It's Arizona. It's summertime, so you might not catch me in it until maybe like November. But yeah, send it through to your man.
He got t-shirts. Don't you fret. You got something for everybody, man. He's only getting bigger. So that'll be it for us. Great episode 2. Thank you everyone for listening to us. Again, to send it off, I'm Sean Gregoire. This is Pat Hardy. Bradley Smith on the board, making us look great as usual. Thank you guys for everything. We're going to get better and better every week. This is just the beginning, man. Thank you guys. Shooting the shit. And we're out.